Texas has a proposed bill to put bleeding stations in schools, and I think that's a really good idea. I think it's really important that children know where to go to bleed because we don't want blood everywhere, it stains. Also, the bill wants to teach children how to do battlefield trauma care, which is a fantastic life skill. This is gonna toughen our children up. We don't want snowflakes. So this is good. And it's gonna save our military so much money because these children, once they turn 18 and they join the military, they could skip basic training and just go right into war. We can really save on our education system as well because we won't even need to hire nurses anymore. Maybe the schools will even be able to afford guns for the teachers finally. But I think they're still gonna have to bargain bin the training on YouTube. I just can't find anything wrong with this bill. It's great.
There's Dara Faye there. I've mentioned her several times. She's now sarcastically responding to this there's an amendment to a previously passed law now that would allow children in schools, or actually, I guess to a degree, teach them some trauma training and how to stop bleeding. Also with these kits in class to limit the bleeding. Wonder why people be bleeding so much in schools, in American schools, where we have to prepare for it. Maybe it's the guns. Maybe it's that. So this is when you hear these folks talk about protecting the children all the time. This is what they're going towards. And this, by the way, here's the twist in this whole thing. If you guys are thinking, man, these Republicans, I can't believe they're going to this degree now. First they're talking about barricading doors and only having one window in the entire school. And now we're on to these. No, this was actually proposed by a Democrat. So Republicans in this state are not surprising some of the worst offenders. This is from a Variety article, Vanity Fair, I'm sorry. Some of the worst offenders when it comes to refusing to address the problem. Having rejected dozens of attempts at gun control while allowing people to carry guns without background checks, licenses, or training. Yeah, we know about that part. So there's the situation. In 2019, State Representative Barbara Gervin-Hawkins, who is a Democrat, she said she had no other choice than to author this bill, which went into effect in 2020, that will require school districts to, quote, maintain and make available to school employees and volunteers these bleeding control stations. So this will go down to almost to third graders as well. That's 9, 8, and 9, 10, and not even 10-year-olds, 8 and 9-year-olds that would have to learn this type of training. Here's a little bit of the text of that bill. Down to the middle where you see that list. This is some of the things they want to make sure is there with that bleeding control station. Tourniquets approved for the use in battlefield trauma care by the Armed Forces of the United States. 8 and 9-year-olds. Chest seals, compression bandages, bleeding control bandages, space emergency blankets, latex-free gloves, markers, scissors, and instructional documents developed by the American College of Surgeons or the United States Department of Homeland Security, detailing a bunch of methods on how to prevent blood loss. So you send your children to school, you think they're gonna be learning about math, science, and history. Well, we're already off of that. But now the next thing is to teach them how to keep their best friend from dying in front of them if their chest is blown open by a school shooter. Sounds like American schools are learning some new things. This is inventive type of stuff, crazy. So again, this is Barbara Gervin-Hawkins. She posted originally about this when they passed it in 2020. And she goes through some of those same details and how she really wants this to at least help in some kind of way, considering they're doing absolutely nothing else. Now think about this, Jackson. We're talking about wartime type of training, battlefield training type of instruction given to children, and just in case they need to use it. But when someone says we need to stop allowing these weapons of war to be passed around, sold willy-nilly throughout our country, they go, those aren't weapons of war. What's the matter with you guys?
Crazy
you guys
talk.
really hyperventilate every time. But then once those weapons of war hit someone, we need to implement things that are used to save people in wartime. Odd how that works.
Yeah, I mean, this is, like the type of training that you would expect if your country's being invaded or something and you have absolutely no choice. Two of the most obvious things. First and foremost, as you pointed out, this does nothing to stop someone from running up in a school and taking the lives in the first place. And secondly, this just wouldn't work. You're not going to be able to train children into being able to handle something like this. I mean, you really can't train anybody to just be able to handle something like this, because the reality is that even if you're a little prepared, the situation isn't going to go down exactly how you train for it. You know what I mean? Like it's not really natural for people to just be in these types of situations unless it's life or death. And Obviously people shouldn't be running up in schools with the guns. But I mean, America is like a parody, because again, I keep saying it because the longer I'm involved in politics, the more it's just like our problems are not complicated. They're not complicated. The people in power just don't give a damn. And the people fleecing their pockets are only focused on becoming more wealthy. So I mean, like, how is it that we can't move past these issues? Because nothing's being done about the guns. It's not more complicated than that. But got to keep this stuff flowing and screw the kids' lives. Just train them up.
We got to frame that line. Our problems are not complicated.
They're not.
They're just not. They're straightforward, and many of the folks who are against some of those solutions know that this problem is not complicated. They just don't want to do the things, those simple solutions we have to do to get by these things, because that would make them lose power, money, and respect of the people who pay them to do this type of stuff. But they've said that the woman who was sponsoring this is actually in favor of gun control, but this is her last resort to maybe save a life or two of a child that's bleeding out. By the way, kids can opt out. Oh, thank you. They can't opt out of watching their friends die, though, because that definitely hasn't changed.